Today's topic, it's a board game math trade off. Ooh. Welcome to another episode of TABLEscraps, in which we present a topic related to tabletop gaming and then have a brief conversation about it with the live audience. Let's not waste any more time listening to this weird intro music. Let's get right into today's discussion. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of TABLEscraps, the live streaming show where I, your host, will discuss a topic about the tabletop board gaming industry along with the YouTube live streaming chat. If you are in the YouTube live streaming chat, then this means you might be participating in today's show. Well, let's find out by first going to today's question and then discussing it. Speaking of today's question, it comes from Gienger, who says, mathematics in games, necessary evil or actually fun? Okay, let's break this down a little bit. First of all, you say math in games, necessary evil or actually fun. Well, let's just take the games out of it and let's just talk about math for a minute. Math can be fun. I have to admit, when I was back in school, I would do like math and algebra problems. I just make up random ones, to solve for fun. So I always considered them to be like, puzzles to figure out. So I would spend a lot of my spare time just, solving math problems that I would make up for myself. And on a completely unrelated note, I always wished I was invited to more parties. So math in and of itself is not necessarily a necessary evil, necessarily. But let's talk about board games. I was going through my collection prior to this episode because I wanted to stick it to you, Christian. I wanted to find a game that used absolutely no math and say, whoa, look, this board game is math exempt, math free. And I couldn't really come up with one. I mean, I was thinking of smaller, lighter games, like even like Targi, a little worker placement. You're just going places to get resources, but no, you have to manage your resources and use math to figure out, what you're going to buy and what what resources you need, and so that was out. Then I thought about like Marvel Legendary. That's just cards and defeating villains. Well, no, I got to get the cards and collect and get enough power to defeat certain villains. So no, a word game, Boggle. Boggle has lots and lots of math because the larger the words, the more points you're going to score. So do I try to make lots of little words, or do I spend the few seconds that I have trying to make fewer longer words, trying to make more points? So even a game of letter cubes mixed up in an incredibly obnoxiously loud plastic container, even that is math filled. It's still math filled. It's not being less math filled than that. So, necessary evil? I say yes. But actually fun? I say also yes. So, Christian, the answer to your question is a double yes. At least, that is my answer to your question. Let's turn over to the YouTube chat and find out how many more yeses or nos they are going to add to my current answer pile. All right, let's start with Peter. Peter's going to set me straight right here, right off the bat, by saying, it depends on how much math. Some math is good. Sentinels of the Multiverse, fun, but it gets a bit fiddly. I have not had enough experience personally with Sentinels of the Multiverse for me to make a cognizant, a coherent, objective opinion on it. I haven't played Sentinels of the Multiverse, but I have heard that it is fiddly and kind of mathy in some respects. So what's a game with too much math? What's a game with not enough math? Because if you say it depends on how much, some is good, are there some games then that have not enough? I can see too much math, but are there games that, man, what this really needs is a quadratic equation, and this game would rock? Is that a thing that happens? In the meantime, we'll continue on to the next comment here, which is by Kabuki Kid, who says, most games have math. Some games, like Power Grid, are very mathy. But then there are games like King of Tokyo, where there's also math, balancing odds of dice rolls. Math is everywhere. Look, there's some math. Like I said, I am hard-pressed to find a game with no math. I was also thinking like word on the street, where there's a row of letters and you're making words, trying to pull the letters that you've used in your words towards your side of the street. Even that you have to calculate the letters that you're using and how many times, and trying to figure out which letters to use how often. And that's math. That's letters and math. That's algebra. Word on the street is this close to being calculus. Let's continue on with Zachary, who says, I like the game Sentinels of the Multiverse, but my wife was super put off by the math in it. She said it made the game clunky. Could it be that the more time that we must spend doing mathematical calculations in our head while we play a game lead to a game being seen as fiddly or clunky? Can we come up with the name of a game that it requires a lot of mathematical computations that still does that without coming across as fiddly? Let's continue on to Axhindrel, who points out, for my benefit, that there is no math in 10Z. As most of you may know, 10Z is my least favorite game of all time, and I would agree with you that there is no math in 10Z. However, we are the exceptions to the rules, because as I pointed out in that video, some of the reviews of 10Z on Amazon.com give it 5 stars specifically because they claim 10Z helps their children with math. So while you and I may see it that way, everyone is not us, and someone out there somewhere is somehow using 10Z to teach math. So more power to them, more power to 10Z, that's great, but they're not right. The next comment being from Gil, who says, although we are afraid of math, we do them often on a daily basis. I think there's worse things in the world than math in a game. True. If I was to open up a box of Kingsburg and it was full of scorpions, yes, that would definitely be a worse thing in a game than math. So Gil, I absolutely agree with you on that one. And I may have misunderstood your question. Trevin mentions money is math. Telling time is math. Calculating victory points is math. You can't get away from it. I got math all over me. That is the very real math-filled world that we find ourselves living in. MM joins us to say, I think it depends on how the game handles it. For example, I don't enjoy Smash Up because I think it's a poor design to track the required sums. You have to root through the pile each time. Here's kind of the opposite side of a previously made argument. Whereas before I was pondering whether the presence of math calculations in a game could be what lead to it being seen as fiddly, here MM is saying, no, it's the fiddly nature of how you have to calculate the math that leads to it being fiddly. Kind of the other way around, in reverse, from the other side. I think that is a very fair, astute observation. And so, okay, that makes me rethink my is math what leads to fiddliness argument. You've totally debunked that. So there you go, learned another thing. From Sasha, who says, while some math is fine, I often find that more math means less fun. I prefer less thinky games because it allows a nice ongoing conversation, or trash talk, with your friends while you're playing. Very true. I know actually just recently I've played a few games that have involved math, and they've kind of ramped it up as the game has gone. So the first few rounds, lots of table talk, lots of chatter, lots of trash talk. But as the rounds progressed, near the last 2 rounds, when it got really mathy intensive, the chatter around the table just stopped. And we were all just transfixed on the game. And we all had this same look on our face. Deep, deep concentration. And so, yeah, I can see the correlation there. More math can mean less conversation because you're spending more of your time doing calculations and computation. And conversely, yes, that could lead to a less fun experience. I think really it's true. It probably depends on who you're gaming with and what you want to get out of your gaming experience. And so, final verdict, going back to the original question, mathematics in game, necessary evil or actually fun? The final answer that I think I've come up with is really, it's going to depend on what you want to get out of the game and who you're playing with. There's going to be players that a really crispy, crunchy, math-intensive like Euro is what they're looking for and crave. That's fine. And there's going to be people who are going to be upset when they realize that Boggle involves math after all. But what about you? Does the level of mathiness affect how much you enjoy playing a game? What's your favorite math-intensive game? And what game out there do you think uses the least amount of math possible? Is there a board game that uses no math? Let me know in the comments below, or over on our Facebook and Twitter pages, where we can continue the conversations about board games there as well. And before we go, I just want to remind everyone that this episode was made possible by those who are financially supporting Pair of Dice Paradise over on our Pod Pledge fundraiser page. Thank you, everyone! Your support there is what's making episodes like this possible. But until next episode that is possible, I have been Chaz Marler, who, along with the YouTube live streaming chat, have been serving up some table scraps. Talk to you again soon. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Table Scraps, the show here that we have a... No, that's not the show. Nope. All right, let's take 2 more comments before my head explodes. That is the really... Darn it! I messed it up twice. Enough said. Let's continue on. That's a special Easter egg just for the people who are watching the live stream.